Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sleep Space. Tonight, we will talk about something both mysterious and deeply fascinating. Does your consciousness leave your body at night? This is not only a scientific question, but also a philosophical one that has been asked across cultures, religions, and sciences for centuries. When you close your eyes and drift away from the waking world, something remarkable happens. You stop experiencing this reality in the same way you do when awake. But where does your awareness actually go? Does it simply turn off like a switch? Or does it journey into another dimension of existence, temporarily leaving the physical body behind? To begin, let's think about the simple fact that every night, your mind transitions from a fully conscious, alert state into a dreamlike experience that often feels as real as waking life. In dreams, you interact with people, move through landscapes, feel emotions, and sometimes even question reality itself. If consciousness were nothing more than a byproduct of brain chemistry, these dream worlds would not feel so immersive, so convincing. They are not just shadows of thought, they are worlds constructed in real time, complete with rules, sensations, and narratives. This immediately raises the question, what exactly is the role of the body during these hours of altered awareness? If the body is resting, but the mind is building entire universes, who or what is experiencing them? Scientists have long debated whether dreams are simply random firings of neurons, or if they represent something deeper. Neuroscience explains that as you enter different stages of sleep, especially REM, your brain becomes highly active, and it's this activity that gives rise to vivid dreams. But even this explanation leaves something unsolved. Why do you feel present inside those dreams? Why do you feel like a self moving through them? Random brain activity doesn't explain the first person perspective you maintain while dreaming. You don't watch your dreams as though they were a movie, you live them. This suggests that consciousness, in some form, detaches from its usual anchoring in the body and explores another layer of reality. Cultures across history have described this in different ways. Ancient Egyptians believed in the concept of the Ba, a soul that could leave the body during sleep and travel the unseen worlds. Indigenous peoples from the Americas to Australia speak of dream time, a dimension where consciousness journeys beyond the physical. In Hindu philosophy, the Upanishads describe dreaming as a state where the self, or Atman, withdraws from the body and travels inward, closer to its true essence. These traditions, separated by vast distances and centuries, all suggest the same thing. Sleep is not merely unconsciousness, but a doorway. If we bring in modern accounts, we see something equally fascinating. Countless people report experiences of lucid dreaming, where they become aware they are dreaming and can control the dream environment. Some describe out of body experiences where they feel themselves rising out of their physical body, floating above it, or traveling to other places altogether. These reports cannot all be dismissed as coincidence or hallucination. They follow consistent patterns across cultures, age groups, and even people with no prior exposure to such concepts. This consistency suggests a deeper truth that consciousness may not be confined to the brain at all. Let's pause and reflect on something important. During waking life, we anchor ourselves to physical senses. We say we are conscious because we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell the world around us. But when those senses shut off in deep rest, consciousness doesn't disappear, it transforms. You still experience, you still think, you still feel. The stage changes, but the experience remains. This raises an incredible possibility. consciousness is more fundamental than the body itself. The body is the vessel, but not the essence. And if that's true, then every night you might actually be slipping into another plane of existence, temporarily leaving your physical form behind. Of course, science remains cautious about such claims. Many neuroscientists argue that dreams and out-of-body experiences are tricks of perception, illusions produced by the brain. They suggest that when the brain interprets sensory signals in unusual ways, it creates the sensation of floating or leaving the body. Yet even within neuroscience, there is debate. Some researchers now explore theories of consciousness that go beyond the physical brain, such as panpsychism, which suggests consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe, much like space and time. If that's the case, then the brain may not generate consciousness, but filter it, like a radio tuning into a signal. When you sleep, that filter could loosen, allowing consciousness to roam freely. Experiments have even shown that during near-death experiences, where brain activity is minimal, people report vivid, structured, and life-changing journeys outside their body. These reports overlap significantly with out-of-body experiences during sleep. If near-death experiences can occur with little brain activity, then perhaps consciousness does not depend on the brain as much as we think. Instead, the brain may be the interface for consciousness, not its source. Think about this. If you wake up from a dream where you were walking on a beach, feeling the sand between your toes and the sun warming your skin, how is that different from remembering a waking memory? Both are experiences, both leave impressions, both feel real. The brain may store them differently, but to you, the experiencer, they carry the same weight. That means your nightly experiences are not just figments, they are realities in their own right, just not the physical one. There is another clue worth considering. Time itself behaves differently when you drift away from waking awareness. A dream lasting what feels like hours can occur in mere minutes of brain activity. Some people describe dreams where entire lifetimes unfold, only to wake up and realize no time has passed at all. If consciousness can slip into realities where time stretches, bends, or collapses, then it is not bound by the physical clock of the body. This suggests that every night consciousness might be entering dimensions where the laws of physics differ from our waking world. What is most extraordinary is how personal and meaningful these nightly journeys can be. People often wake from dreams with insights, inspiration, or even solutions to problems that baffled them in waking life. Great works of art, music, and scientific discovery have emerged from what people experience during these states. This shows that whatever happens when awareness detaches from the physical, it connects to something vast, something intelligent, and something beyond our everyday perception. So tonight, as you listen, imagine this. You are not just lying in your room, resting. You are preparing to enter another mode of existence. Your body may remain where it is, but your consciousness is about to step through an unseen doorway into another world, one where the rules are different, one where the self is free from the limits of the physical form. Whether we call it dreaming, out-of-body travel, or something yet to be named, this nightly transition reminds us that who we are cannot be reduced to flesh and bone alone. There is something deeper, something that journeys even when the body is still. To explore this mystery further, we need to ask a fundamental question. What exactly is consciousness? It may seem obvious. You are conscious right now, aware of my words, aware of the space around you, aware of your own thoughts. But when scientists and philosophers attempt to define it, the answers are not simple. Some say it is the ability to perceive, others call it awareness itself, while still others argue it is the subjective experience of being. What makes consciousness so fascinating is that we all have it, and yet no one can point to a single physical structure and say, this is where it lives. The brain is involved, yes, but the origin of consciousness remains one of the greatest mysteries of science. This brings us closer to the idea that it might not be confined to the body at all. The traditional scientific view is that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain, a result of billions of neurons firing in intricate patterns. But this explanation struggles to answer what is known as the hard problem of consciousness. How does electrical activity in the brain give rise to the vivid first-person experience of life? How do firing neurons produce the taste of chocolate, the feeling of joy, or the sense of self? No formula, no scan, and no measurement has explained this leap from matter to mind. And so some thinkers argue that consciousness may not be created by the brain at all. It may be a fundamental property of the universe. If consciousness is not locked inside the brain, then the idea that it can move beyond the body starts to sound more possible. Consider the analogy of a television. The program you watch does not come from inside the box. It is broadcast as a signal that the television decodes. If the television breaks, the program is not destroyed. It simply can't be displayed. In the same way, the brain could be the receiver, not the source. When the body rests, the receiver may tune differently, allowing consciousness to access other channels of reality. Evidence for this perspective comes not only from dreams, but also from countless reports of near-death experiences. These accounts are striking because they often happen when brain activity is minimal, and yet people describe vivid journeys outside of their bodies. They see operating rooms from above, hear conversations that can later be verified, and sometimes travel through landscapes of light or encounter deceased loved ones. Whether or not these experiences are literal, they suggest that consciousness can exist in a state detached from the physical body. The similarity between these accounts and reports of out-of-body experiences during sleep is hard to ignore. Both describe a sense of separation from the physical self and entry into a different dimension of reality. Skeptics, of course, have their explanations. They say these experiences are hallucinations caused by oxygen deprivation, brain chemistry, or psychological expectations. But even within skeptical explanations, there is a hidden recognition that consciousness behaves in ways not fully understood. Why would the brain, struggling to survive, create a vivid and structured journey instead of simply shutting down? And why would so many of these accounts share the same themes across cultures, ages, and belief systems? One possibility is that consciousness naturally exists in layers. During waking life, we operate primarily on the physical layer, interacting with the material world. During rest, we shift into subtler layers, where consciousness explores realities not bound by physical senses. These layers could be infinite, stacked like dimensions within dimensions. Some traditions even describe them this way. Tibetan Buddhism, for example, speaks of the bardos, states of consciousness experienced during life, death, and the transition in between. Sleep and dreaming are considered practice for navigating these states, suggesting that every night we train for journeys beyond the body. Another perspective comes from quantum physics. While still debated, some researchers have proposed that consciousness might be linked to quantum processes in the brain. If that is true, then consciousness could behave more like energy, capable of existing beyond traditional limits. energy is not destroyed, it only changes form? Could it be that consciousness too is not destroyed when the body rests, but simply shifts into another expression? This would mean that every night, awareness does not disappear but transforms, moving beyond the confines of ordinary perception. To understand this idea more deeply, let's consider the nature of perception itself. Right now, as you listen, your brain is taking in information from the senses and constructing a model of reality. You do not directly experience the world, you experience your brain's interpretation of it. Light enters your eyes, but what you see is the brain's translation. Sound waves vibrate in the air, but what you hear is the brain's version of them. Everything you think of as reality is, in a sense, already a virtual world created by the mind. If that's the case, then when you drift into alternate states of consciousness, you may simply be shifting into another virtual model, one not tied to physical senses. The experiencer remains the same, you, but the world it moves through changes. Many who have practiced lucid dreaming report experiences so vivid and coherent that they seem indistinguishable from waking life. They describe traveling through cities they have never seen before, meeting people they do not know, or even encountering landscapes that feel more real than physical reality. Some bring back knowledge, insights, or even creative works they could not have imagined otherwise. If these experiences are simply brain-generated illusions, how do they carry such depth and meaning? If they are not illusions, then perhaps consciousness is indeed visiting other dimensions. Stories throughout history suggest that humans have always sensed this. Shamans speak of spirit journeys where they leave their bodies to seek wisdom or healing. Mystics describe visions that occur in states of deep rest or meditation. Even in modern times, countless individuals recount floating above their bodies, traveling to distant places, or encountering realms of light and sound. These experiences are not limited to dreamers or mystics. They appear in ordinary people, often without seeking them. The universality of these accounts suggests that leaving the body, whether temporarily or symbolically, is part of the human experience. So what does this mean for us? It could mean that every night, when awareness detaches from the physical body, we are reminded of our true nature. We are not merely biological machines, we are explorers of dimensions. The body is important, it anchors us to the physical world, but it is not the whole story. The nightly departure of consciousness may be a gentle reminder of the greater reality we belong to, a reality where awareness is free, untethered, and infinite. Imagine this possibility. As you rest, your consciousness slips into realms beyond time and space, where it learns, heals, and remembers truths too vast for the waking mind to carry. You may not recall all of it upon waking, but traces remain. An image, a feeling, a sudden understanding. These traces are clues, breadcrumbs left behind by journeys your conscious mind cannot fully grasp. Perhaps this is why so many cultures treat dreams and out-of-body experiences as sacred, as messages from beyond the ordinary. The modern world often dismisses these experiences as mere imagination, but imagination itself is powerful. It is the ability to create, to envision, to connect with realities beyond the one directly in front of us. When you imagine, you are not simply inventing, you are tapping into something deeper, something that may already exist in another layer of reality. If that is true, then what we call imagination during waking life may be the same force that guides consciousness beyond the body during the night. This raises another question. If consciousness can move beyond the body, then what are its limits? Can it travel across vast distances? Can it enter other dimensions entirely? Some experiments in remote viewing, though controversial, suggest it might. Individuals trained in altered states of awareness have reported seeing and describing distant places with surprising accuracy. If even a fraction of these accounts are true, it suggests consciousness is not bound by physical space. Every night, when you slip beyond waking awareness, you may be engaging in a similar process, traveling, observing, existing beyond the body. The more we explore this, the more we realize that consciousness is not a simple phenomenon. It is layered, dynamic, and mysterious. It may not be produced by the body at all, but instead use the body as a temporary home. And if that is true, then what you experience each night is more than rest. It is a reminder of your essence, an invitation to glimpse realities that extend far beyond what the senses can perceive. These moments occur not only in nightly transitions, but also in altered states such as deep meditation, trance, or even moments of intense focus. In each of these, the body becomes secondary, almost irrelevant, while awareness expands into a field of experience that feels separate from physical limitations. This raises the possibility that the body is not the container of consciousness, but more like its anchor, a grounding point in physical reality. Take meditation as an example. Across cultures, those who dedicate themselves to quieting the mind often describe states where their sense of self dissolves. They feel as though they are merging with something larger, as if their awareness stretches beyond their physical form. Neuroscientific studies confirm that during these states, the brain's usual sense of self-processing regions quiet down, giving rise to the feeling of expansion. Yet what meditators report is not simply a blank state. It is a vivid experience of connection, light, or boundless presence. If consciousness was strictly confined to the brain, how could it generate the sensation of being infinite, timeless, or outside the body? Another area worth exploring is trance states. Shamans, mystics, and healers throughout history have entered trances to journey beyond the ordinary world. They describe traveling to other realms, encountering beings, and bringing back wisdom or healing knowledge. Modern psychology often interprets these as altered brain states, but the consistency of these accounts across cultures points to something deeper. People who never met, who lived continents apart, describe journeys that sound strikingly similar. This could suggest that consciousness, when freed from physical anchoring, moves into shared dimensions of reality that all humans can access. We also see hints of this phenomenon in extreme focus. Have you ever been so deeply absorbed in something, painting, writing, or even daydreaming, that you forgot where you were? Hours passed without notice, and you felt carried by something beyond yourself. In those moments, your sense of body faded, replaced by pure awareness of the activity. Though subtle, this too is a form of detachment. Consciousness shifted from its identification with the body to another space of experience. It suggests that leaving the body may not always be dramatic. It may occur in everyday ways, whenever awareness loosens its grip on physical identity. From these examples, we begin to see a pattern. Consciousness appears to be flexible, capable of shifting focus between layers of experience. The body is one such layer, but not the only one. This aligns with the idea that awareness is not generated by the body, but expressed through it. The body is a doorway, not a prison. To deepen our exploration, let's consider the concept of astral projection. This is the belief that consciousness, sometimes called the astral body, can separate from the physical body and travel independently. Countless people claim to have experienced it, feeling themselves float upward, turn, and see their physical body lying below. Some describe traveling to distant places, even interacting with environments or beings they had never encountered before. While skeptics argue this is the brain's way of simulating an external perspective, others insist that the experiences are too vivid, too consistent, and too life-changing to be dismissed. One striking detail is that many who practice astral projection report a silver cord, a thread-like connection between their floating awareness and their physical body. This image appears in multiple traditions across the world, from ancient religious texts to modern reports. The fact that cultures separated by thousands of years and vast distances describe the same phenomenon suggests it's not merely a product of imagination, rather, it may be a universal feature of the way consciousness detaches from the body. Science has yet to prove astral projection, but intriguing evidence exists. In controlled experiments, some individuals have reportedly described details of distant rooms or hidden objects while claiming to be outside their bodies. While results are debated, they point to the possibility that awareness can extend beyond the physical form. And even if the scientific community remains cautious, the experiences themselves carry undeniable meaning for those who live them. People often return from such journeys with a changed perspective, less fear of death, greater sense of purpose, and a deeper understanding of their connection to the universe. This brings us to another important theme: transformation. If consciousness leaves the body, even temporarily, it may return with insights that reshape waking life. Think of someone who wakes from a powerful dream with a sudden realization about their relationships, their work, or their path in life. The experience was not physical, yet it altered the course of their waking reality. This suggests that journeys of consciousness are not just escapes, they are opportunities for growth. Each time awareness moves beyond the body, it may gather wisdom from realms not accessible to ordinary perception. Consider creativity as an example. History is full of accounts where great discoveries or works of art were inspired by experiences beyond ordinary waking awareness. The chemist Friedrich Kekuler dreamed of a snake biting its own tail and woke to discover the ring structure of benzene. Musicians like Paul McCartney have said entire songs came to them in dreams. These are not minor coincidences. They are breakthroughs that shaped human culture. Where did this information come from? If the body was at rest, yet consciousness brought back something entirely new, perhaps it accessed dimensions of reality where knowledge already exists, waiting to be discovered. Another aspect to examine is the phenomenon of shared experiences. Sometimes two people report meeting in a dream or during an out-of-body state. They wake and describe the same conversation, the same environment, or the same sequence of events. These accounts are rare but significant. If even one is genuine, it challenges the idea that consciousness is purely internal. It suggests that during these nightly journeys, awareness can intersect with others in a shared reality outside the physical world. If this is true, then what we experience at night is not just personal but collective. Consciousness may travel into spaces where individuals connect, exchange, and explore together. This could explain why so many traditions describe dream realms or spirit worlds as communal places, not solitary illusions. They are landscapes of consciousness where many can meet. Let's also consider the role of memory. Often we forget the details of our nightly journeys. They fade quickly upon waking, leaving only fragments or impressions. Some argue this means the experiences are unimportant, but think of memory as a filter. Just as you don't remember every detail of your day, you may not remember every detail of your nightly explorations. That does not mean they did not happen. It may simply mean the brain, acting as the receiver, cannot fully translate or store experiences that occur outside its normal parameters. Yet the effects remain. A feeling of peace, a sudden idea, or a shift in perspective, all are signs that something meaningful occurred. If we step back, a picture begins to form. Consciousness is not confined to the body, but flows through it, interacting with multiple layers of reality. At times, it identifies with the body and the physical world. At other times, it slips free, exploring dimensions where time, space, and identity behave differently. These journeys may be the reason why humans have always sensed that life is more than the material. From ancient myths of soul travel to modern accounts of astral projection, the message is consistent. You are more than your body. Now imagine this. Every night, without effort, you engage in this process. Your body rests, your brain cycles through patterns, but your consciousness does something extraordinary. It explores, it learns, it remembers truths you may not fully recall upon waking, but which shape you nonetheless. Each morning you rise not only refreshed, but subtly changed by the unseen journeys you have taken. This perspective reframes the question entirely. The mystery is not whether consciousness leaves the body, but how it does, where it goes, and what it brings back. The fact that humans across all times and cultures describe such experiences suggests that leaving the body is not an exception, but a natural part of being conscious. The real wonder is that most of us overlook it, treating these nightly journeys as trivial or meaningless, when in fact they may hold the key to understanding what we truly are. If awareness can exist apart from the body, then the universe may be far stranger than we imagine. To explore this, let us consider how reality is constructed. Most of us believe the world is solid and objective, existing independently of perception. Yet modern physics tells us that at the deepest levels, matter is not solid at all. Atoms are mostly empty space, with particles flickering in and out of existence, guided by probabilities rather than certainties. The solidity you feel when you touch a table is not the table itself, but the interaction between electrical charges. This means that the world we experience is already filtered through perception. Reality, in other words, is not something we passively observe, but something our consciousness actively participates in. If reality itself is not fixed but fluid, then consciousness may not be bound to one form. Just as particles can exist in multiple states, awareness may be able to exist in multiple layers. When the physical senses quiet down, as they do every night, consciousness may naturally shift into another state of reality, one just as real but less tied to matter. Philosophers have long suspected this. Plato spoke of a higher realm of forms, eternal and unchanging, that underlies the material world. In his allegory of the cave, he described humanity as watching shadows on a wall, unaware of the deeper reality beyond. Similarly, Indian philosophy describes Maya, the illusion of material existence behind which lies a truer spiritual reality. These ideas align with the possibility that when consciousness loosens from the body, it glimpses a greater reality beyond the physical. To test these ideas, researchers have studied altered states of consciousness induced by sound, rhythm, or even specific breathing techniques. In many cases, people report vivid journeys outside of the body, consistent with accounts of nightly experiences. Rhythmic drumming used by shamans, for example, can trigger sensations of flight or travel. Modern brain imaging shows that these states involve shifts in neural activity, especially in regions tied to self-awareness. Yet what is remarkable is that despite different methods, sleep, meditation, drumming, the experiences share the same core features: detachment from the body, entry into a vivid alternate reality, and a return with lasting impressions. This suggests that leaving the body is not random, but part of the architecture of consciousness itself. The brain may simply be the gateway, adjusting its patterns to allow awareness to slip into different dimensions. If so, then the nightly departure of consciousness is not an accident, but a built-in feature of human experience. Now consider the phenomenon of near-death visions. Across the world, people who have come close to death describe journeys of light, tunnels, encounters with beings, and a sense of leaving their bodies behind. These reports mirror the descriptions of out-of-body experiences in nightly transitions. In both cases, consciousness seems to step away from the physical form and enter a domain where time and space behave differently. What makes near-death accounts so powerful is that they occur when the body is in crisis, when brain function is minimal. If vivid experiences can occur then, it suggests that consciousness is not dependent on the body to exist. Skeptics argue that these visions are the brain's last bursts of activity, but that explanation leaves gaps. Why do people report seeing events in the physical world they could not have known? Why do they describe encounters that bring profound transformation, reducing fear of death and increasing compassion? If the experiences were mere illusions, why would they be so consistent and life-changing? Let us look more closely at consistency. Reports of leaving the body are not confined to one culture or time period. They appear in ancient Egyptian texts, in indigenous traditions, in medieval mystical writings, and in modern accounts. The environments may differ. The Egyptians spoke of travelling with the car, while modern people might describe floating above their hospital bed. But the core idea is the same. Consciousness can separate from the body and continue its journey. This cross-cultural similarity is powerful evidence that the experience is universal, not merely cultural suggestion. Another intriguing line of thought comes from the study of children's memories of past lives. Researchers like Dr. Ian Stevenson documented thousands of cases where young children recalled specific details of lives they could not have known. Some even bore birthmarks or phobias corresponding to the remembered experiences. If these accounts are valid, they suggest that consciousness can survive death, detach from one body and inhabit another. If that is possible, then leaving the body at night may be a small-scale version of the same process, a rehearsal of sorts. It is also worth exploring how consciousness interacts with time. During nightly journeys, time often behaves in strange ways. A dream may feel like days, but pass in minutes. Alternatively, a short nap can produce experiences of entire stories. This elasticity of time mirrors reports of near-death and out-of-body experiences, where minutes in the physical world feel like hours or lifetimes elsewhere. If consciousness can experience time differently outside the body, it implies that it is not bound to the linear clock of physical reality. Instead, it may access dimensions where time flows according to awareness itself. This connects to modern physics, which shows that time is not absolute, but relative. It bends and stretches depending on speed and gravity. Consciousness, freed from the body, may step into realms where time is shaped by perception, not by physical laws. This would explain why nightly journeys often feel timeless, why you may experience entire lifetimes in what the body perceives as moments. Now let us consider the role of the subconscious. Much of what we experience when detached from the body seems symbolic or abstract. Dreams, visions, and journeys often unfold in metaphor. A mountain may represent a challenge, a stranger may embody an aspect of yourself, a flight may symbolize freedom. Some argue that this proves the experiences are internal, produced by the subconscious, but another interpretation is possible. Perhaps the subconscious is not just internal, but also a bridge. It may be the translator between deeper realities and the waking mind. When consciousness leaves the body, the subconscious provides symbols to help interpret what is otherwise beyond words. This would mean that nightly experiences are both real and symbolic, both personal and universal. The landscapes may carry meaning unique to you, but they may also connect to greater realities that all consciousness can access. In this way, leaving the body is not just a physical detachment, but also a journey into the symbolic structure of reality itself. Imagine consciousness as a traveller carrying a lantern. The body is the home it returns to each day, but at night the traveller steps outside, lantern in hand, exploring the vastness beyond. It may wander through personal landscapes, collective realms, or dimensions yet unnamed. Each journey brings back light, fragments of memory, feelings of awe, or insights that shape waking life. The home remains, but the traveller is never confined to it. This metaphor points to an important idea. We are not our bodies, we live through them, but we are not limited by them. The nightly departure of consciousness is a reminder of this truth. It whispers to us that who we are is far greater than flesh and bone, that our essence is boundless, and that reality is layered with dimensions awaiting exploration. And if this is true, then the question changes. We no longer ask whether consciousness leaves the body, but why it does so. What purpose does it serve? Perhaps it is for rest, not just of the body, but of the soul. Perhaps it is for learning, gathering experiences from beyond the physical, or perhaps it is for remembering, reconnecting with the deeper truth of our existence. Whatever the purpose, the fact that it happens nightly suggests it is essential. It is not an accident of biology, but a core part of being human. In the end, what matters most is not whether science proves these journeys in a laboratory, but how they transform our understanding of ourselves. To believe that consciousness can leave the body is to believe that we are more than material beings. It is to see ourselves as explorers of reality, capable of touching realms beyond time, space, and physical form. This perspective expands our sense of meaning, giving depth to our nightly journeys and purpose to our waking lives. One of the most compelling ideas is that there are multiple layers of reality existing simultaneously. Just as radio waves of many frequencies pass invisibly through the air at all times, there may be layers of existence that coexist with our physical world, but are usually beyond perception. The body, with its senses, is tuned to one particular station, the physical reality of matter and time. But when consciousness shifts away from bodily focus, it may tune into other frequencies, other layers of reality. These could be dreamscapes, symbolic realms, or even dimensions populated by other forms of awareness. Reports of out-of-body experiences often describe a transitional stage, a space that resembles the physical world but feels lighter, more fluid, as though made of thought itself. In this state, people describe floating through rooms, passing through walls, or even seeing their own body lying still below them. This environment feels familiar yet subtly altered, like a parallel version of the physical world. Some traditions call this the astral plane, a layer of reality close to the physical but more malleable, shaped as much by thought and intention as by natural law. Beyond this layer, people describe entering realms that are profoundly different. Some speak of landscapes of light, infinite expanses where time has no meaning. Others describe cities of shimmering architecture filled with beings of intelligence and compassion. Still others find themselves in symbolic environments that reflect their inner state. Lush gardens when at peace, turbulent storms when in turmoil. These accounts suggest that consciousness, when free of the body, moves through realities that reflect both universal structures and personal states of mind. Science, cautious as always, may interpret these as projections of the subconscious, and yet even if that were the case, it does not diminish their significance. For the subconscious itself may be a gateway to deeper layers of reality. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, believed that beneath the personal subconscious lies a collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of symbols and archetypes connecting all humanity. If this is true, then when consciousness detaches from the body, it may be accessing this collective space, a realm where individual minds meet and interact within a shared symbolic language. But perhaps these experiences are not only symbolic. Consider the phenomenon of veridical out-of-body experiences, where people report seeing or hearing events that can later be verified. For example, someone in surgery may describe details of instruments or conversations occurring while their body was unconscious. If even a fraction of these cases are accurate, it suggests that consciousness is not confined to imagination, but can perceive independently of the physical senses. This implies that when awareness detaches from the body, it can operate as a perceiving entity in its own right, moving through real environments, whether physical or non-physical. This brings us to the idea of consciousness as non-local. In quantum physics, non-locality describes the way particles can be connected across vast distances, influencing one another instantly, as though space itself were irrelevant. Some scientists have suggested that consciousness may behave in a similar way, not confined to one place, but existing as a field that extends beyond the brain. If this is true, then leaving the body may not be a movement through space at all, but a shift of focus within a larger field of awareness that is always present. Another perspective comes from ancient traditions that describe consciousness as having multiple layers or bodies. In Hindu philosophy, for instance, the human being is said to have 5 koshas, or sheaths, ranging from the physical body to subtler layers of energy and awareness. Similarly, esoteric traditions speak of the physical, astral, mental, and spiritual bodies. In this view, leaving the body simply means shifting identification from the physical sheath to one of the subtler ones. The self is not leaving in the sense of traveling elsewhere, but rather realizing itself in a different layer of its own being. Such perspectives align with countless first-hand reports. People who experience leaving their bodies often describe it not as a movement of distance, but as a shift of perspective. One moment they are identified with the physical body, the next they are floating above it, watching. The transition is instantaneous, like changing channels on a television. This suggests that these realms may not be out there in space, but layered dimensions accessible through shifts in consciousness itself. It is also worth noting that many who experience these journeys describe encountering other beings. Sometimes they are deceased relatives, sometimes luminous guides, sometimes entirely unfamiliar presences radiating intelligence and compassion. Skeptics might say these are projections of the mind, but those who experience them often insist the encounters felt as real as any waking interaction, sometimes even more so. And in many cases, the information or comfort received during such meetings has lasting effects on the person's life. If consciousness can leave the body and encounter other forms of awareness, it suggests a vast ecosystem of intelligence beyond the physical world. But why would consciousness need to leave the body at all? One possibility is growth. Just as traveling to new countries expands your understanding of the world, traveling into new dimensions expands your understanding of reality itself. These journeys may offer lessons, healing, or insights that cannot be gained in the physical world alone. Another possibility is connection. By leaving the body, consciousness may reconnect with the greater field of awareness it comes from, remembering its place in the vastness of existence. And still another is preparation. Many traditions teach that these nightly journeys prepare us for the ultimate transition of death, when consciousness leaves the body permanently. In this sense, every night may be a rehearsal, a reminder that our true essence is not confined to physical form. Let us consider a metaphor. Imagine you live your entire life in one room. You know the furniture, the colours, the sounds. This is your world. But every night you step outside the door and wander into a vast city full of wonders. You may not remember every detail upon returning, but you carry back impressions. The sense that the room is not the whole of reality, that there is more beyond. Over time, this knowledge shapes you, giving you perspective, freedom, and courage. That is what the nightly departure of consciousness may be. A step outside the room of the body into the greater city of existence. There is also an interesting relationship between leaving the body and creativity. As mentioned earlier, many artists, musicians, and scientists have drawn inspiration from dreams and altered states. But perhaps what they are doing is bringing back fragments from journeys beyond the physical. When consciousness detaches, it may access realms where ideas, patterns, and truths already exist, waiting to be discovered. The act of creation in waking life may simply be the translation of those discoveries into physical form. In this sense, consciousness leaving the body is not only a mystery, but also a source of human progress, fueling imagination and innovation throughout history. Another dimension to explore is healing. Many people who undergo out-of-body experiences or deep dream states report a sense of emotional or even physical healing. They awaken with less pain, renewed energy, or a feeling of peace. Some traditions teach that in these states, consciousness interacts with subtler layers of the self, correcting imbalances that manifest as illness in the physical body. Modern science is only beginning to explore the mind-body connection, but evidence already shows that mental states profoundly affect health. If consciousness, when free of the body, can engage with deeper levels of healing, it may explain why these journeys are so restorative. What makes this even more profound is that the process seems universal. Every culture, every age, every person engages in it, whether consciously or unconsciously. You do not need training or belief. The journeys occur naturally, built into the fabric of human existence. Whether we call them dreams, visions, astral travel, or subconscious processes, the fact remains, consciousness has a life beyond the body. one that plays out every night. And yet, despite its universality, most of us overlook it. We treat nightly journeys as mere imagination, random firings of neurons, or forgettable illusions. But what if they are among the most important things we do? What if, in leaving the body, consciousness reconnects with the very source of its being, bringing back fragments of truth that guide our lives in ways we cannot fully measure? This possibility invites us to take these experiences seriously, to treat them as sacred, and to honor the mystery they reveal. The nature of consciousness and whether it can truly separate from the body forces us to confront one of the most enduring debates in human thought. Is consciousness a product of the brain, or is the brain merely a receiver of consciousness? How we answer this question changes everything about how we interpret the nightly journeys of awareness. Materialist science traditionally holds that consciousness arises entirely from brain activity. In this view, the brain is like a computer. Neurons fire, chemicals transmit signals, and from this complex web of processes, the phenomenon of subjective awareness emerges. If the brain ceases, awareness ceases. Dreams, out-of-body experiences, and all other altered states are explained as internal constructions, simulations created by a busy neural network. According to this model, there is no leaving the body, because there is nowhere for awareness to go outside of brain activity. And yet, cracks appear in this materialist explanation. Consider near-death experiences where consciousness persists even when the brain shows no measurable activity. Cases of veridical perception, where people accurately describe events or objects they could not have sensed physically, pose challenges to the idea that awareness is confined to the brain. Then there are documented instances of children recalling verifiable details of past lives, a phenomenon difficult to reconcile with the notion of consciousness as merely a byproduct of the physical brain. If we shift perspective, another model emerges, that the brain does not create consciousness, but instead acts as a filter or receiver. In this view, consciousness is fundamental, existing independently of physical matter, and the brain simply tunes into it, much as a radio tunes into a broadcast. When the brain is active, we experience awareness focused in the physical world. When the brain quiets, as during sleep or altered states, consciousness shifts to other channels, other frequencies of reality. Leaving the body, then, is simply the awareness stepping beyond the narrow filter of the brain and accessing broader dimensions of existence. Philosophers and scientists have wrestled with this idea for centuries. William James, one of the fathers of psychology, suggested that the brain might be less a generator of consciousness than a reducer, limiting the vast field of awareness so that we can function in everyday life. Aldous Huxley later expanded on this with his reducing valve theory, suggesting that the brain filters out most of reality, allowing only the narrow band of information necessary for survival. Psychedelic experiences, dreams, and out-of-body states, then, may occur when the valve loosens and more of reality flows through. If this is true, then the nightly journeys of consciousness are not anomalies or errors of brain activity, but natural expansions beyond the filter. The body rests, the brain releases its grip, and awareness flows into broader dimensions. This would explain why many out-of-body experiences feel not less real, but more real, more vivid and significant than waking life. It is not the dulling of awareness, but its liberation. Of course, skeptics argue that all such experiences can be explained by neural processes. For instance, stimulation of the temporoparietal junction in the brain can induce sensations of leaving the body. Does this prove that the experience is nothing more than brain activity? Not necessarily. It may simply mean that the brain has structures associated with shifting awareness, much as a radio has a tuner for changing frequencies. The presence of a tuner does not prove that the broadcast originates in the radio. It only shows the mechanism by which the signal is accessed. This raises deeper questions about the relationship between brain and consciousness. If consciousness can leave the body, is it still tied to the brain in some way, like a tethered balloon, or is it entirely independent, free to wander? Many who experience out-of-body states describe a silver cord, a luminous thread connecting them to their physical body. This symbol appears in ancient texts across cultures, from Hindu scriptures to Western mysticism. Whether literal or metaphorical, the silver cord represents the enduring connection between body and soul, a lifeline ensuring that the traveler can return. Another intriguing possibility is that consciousness may have multiple modes of operation. In waking life, it is localized, focused through the brain and senses. In altered states, it may become non-local, diffuse, capable of perceiving across distance or dimension. Experiments in remote viewing, where individuals perceive distant locations with surprising accuracy, suggest that consciousness may not be bound by space in the way physical bodies are. If this capacity exists, then leaving the body may be a natural expression of non-local consciousness, a reminder of its broader capabilities. Philosophy also weighs heavily on this debate. Dualism, the idea that mind and body are separate substances, has ancient roots going back to Plato and Descartes. Materialism insists the opposite, that only matter exists and mind is its byproduct. But in recent decades, new models like panpsychism have emerged, suggesting that consciousness may be a fundamental property of the universe, like space or time. In panpsychism, everything has some degree of awareness, from atoms to galaxies. Human consciousness would then be a complex expression of this universal field. If so, then leaving the body is less about escaping physical form and more about shifting into resonance with the consciousness inherent in the wider universe. These philosophical models highlight an important point. Perhaps the nightly journeys of consciousness cannot be fully explained by material science alone. They may demand a broader framework, one that unites physics, philosophy, and spirituality. Quantum theory offers tantalizing hints. Phenomena like entanglement and superposition suggest that reality is far stranger than classical physics allowed, with connections and possibilities that defy ordinary understanding. Some theorists speculate that consciousness itself may be quantum in nature, capable of existing in multiple states or locations simultaneously. If so, then leaving the body might be an expression of this quantum capacity, a shifting of awareness across states of existence. But beyond abstract theory, the human experience remains the most compelling evidence. People return from these journeys transformed. They speak of a deeper understanding of life, a reduction in the fear of death, a sense of interconnectedness with all existence. These are not trivial effects. If consciousness leaving the body were merely a neurological trick, why would it consistently inspire such profound changes? The consistency of these transformations suggests that something more is happening, something that touches the very core of what it means to be human. There is also the ethical and existential dimension. If consciousness can exist beyond the body, even temporarily, then the boundaries of life and death blur. Death becomes not an end, but a transition, a permanent leaving of the body rather than a cessation of awareness. This changes how we view mortality, how we treat one another, and how we understand the purpose of existence. It suggests that life is not confined to the brief span of years in the physical form, but is part of a continuum of awareness stretching beyond time and space. What, then, should we make of our nightly departures? Are they simply evolutionary quirks, accidents of brain chemistry, or are they glimpses of a greater truth, subtle rehearsals for the ultimate journey we all must take? The answer may not be one or the other, but both. Perhaps the brain has evolved to allow these experiences precisely because they serve a deeper purpose, connecting us to realities beyond the immediate, expanding our perspective, preparing us for transitions larger than we can imagine. Think of it like training wheels. Every night, consciousness practices detachment from the body, learning how to navigate realms beyond the physical. We may not remember the lessons, but the practice shapes us nonetheless, imprinting a familiarity with the process of release. Then, when the final departure comes, it is not alien or terrifying, but a continuation of something we have done countless times before. This perspective reframes the human experience. We are not merely biological machines grinding through life until the inevitable shutdown. We are travelers, nightly voyagers in a cosmos of awareness, moving through layers of reality far richer than we usually perceive. The body is our home, but not our prison. It is a launching point, a grounding station, from which consciousness can expand and explore. At the same time, it is important to acknowledge the mystery. No theory, scientific, philosophical, or spiritual, has fully captured the essence of what happens when consciousness leaves the body. The experiences resist reduction, pointing always to something greater, something just beyond comprehension. And perhaps that is the point. Mystery itself may be essential, inviting us not to solve existence like a puzzle, but to live it as a journey, full of wonder and discovery. Are you the body, the mind, or the consciousness that observes both? When people describe floating outside their body, watching themselves from above, it raises the unsettling but profound question: who exactly is the eye that is watching? Ordinarily, we equate ourselves with the body. We say, my hand, my brain, my heart, suggesting ownership. Yet if we were identical with the body, we would not speak of it as something we possess. The language hints at something deeper, a self that is the possessor of the body rather than the body itself. The same holds for the mind. We say my thoughts or my memories as though these too belong to someone deeper. This suggests that our true identity may not be the body or the mind, but the consciousness that experiences them. Out-of-body experiences amplify this intuition, showing us directly that the observer exists independently of the physical form. Philosophers have wrestled with this issue for millennia. The ancient Greeks spoke of the soul as distinct from the body. Eastern traditions, such as Vedanta and Buddhism, teach that the self is not the fleeting forms of thought or matter, but the unchanging awareness behind them. Modern thinkers continue the debate, questioning whether the self is an illusion generated by the brain, or a fundamental reality that transcends it. Out-of-body states provide a unique lens into this debate, because they dramatize the separation of observer and observed, pulling awareness outside the usual boundaries of self-identification. This brings us to the question of memory. If consciousness leaves the body nightly, why do we so rarely recall it? One possibility is that the brain, acting as the filter or receiver, only records experiences that occur within certain parameters. The broader journeys of consciousness may not imprint easily on the neural networks designed for waking life. Memories may fade upon re-entry, much as dreams vanish upon waking. This does not mean the experiences are unreal. only that our waking brain struggles to translate them. Another possibility is protective. Perhaps we are not meant to remember fully. Just as a computer hides complex code behind simple interfaces, reality may conceal certain layers of experience to prevent overwhelm. If we remembered every journey, every dimension, we might lose focus on the physical world, which demands our attention for survival and growth. Forgetting may be a feature, not a flaw, allowing us to engage fully with this dimension while still benefiting from the unseen lessons of others. Interestingly, practices like lucid dreaming and meditation suggest that memory can be trained. People who cultivate awareness during sleep often report clearer recollections of out-of-body states, sometimes with startling detail. This implies that consciousness does indeed journey, but without deliberate training, the brain does not preserve the record. In this sense, developing inner discipline can act as a bridge between worlds, carrying back more of what occurs when consciousness is free. Beyond memory, we must also ask, what is the purpose of these nightly excursions? If they are universal, then they are not accidents. Nature does little without reason. One hypothesis is integration. During waking life, we gather impressions, experiences, and emotions. When consciousness detaches from the body, it may process and integrate these, weaving them into the larger tapestry of being. Another hypothesis is exploration. Consciousness may use these states to explore possibilities, test scenarios, or even communicate with other intelligences. Still another is connection. Detached from the body, awareness may reconnect with the greater field of existence, reaffirming its place within the whole. Many traditions describe these journeys as opportunities for guidance. In altered states, people often encounter figures of wisdom who offer insight or comfort. Whether these guides are aspects of the subconscious or independent beings remains open to interpretation. But the effect is real. People return with clarity, healing, or direction they did not possess before. If consciousness leaves the body, it may enter realms where guidance is more accessible, where the veils of ordinary perception are lifted. Consider also the relationship between these states and time. In ordinary waking life, time flows in a strict sequence: past, present, future. Yet in altered states, people often report that time becomes fluid, non-linear. They may experience entire lifetimes in moments or perceive events before they occur. This suggests that leaving the body may also involve leaving the constraints of linear time. Consciousness, unbound from the physical, may perceive reality from a higher vantage, where time is not a line but a landscape. If true, this raises profound implications about destiny, free will, and the structure of existence itself. Another fascinating aspect is the consistency of certain symbols across cultures. People who have never heard of the silver cord describe it. People across centuries describe tunnels of light, floating sensations, or landscapes beyond the physical. While details differ, the underlying motifs remain remarkably stable. This universality hints that we are tapping into a shared reality rather than purely personal imagination. Just as humans everywhere perceive the same physical laws, perhaps we also encounter similar structures in non-physical realms. Skeptics may counter that human brains are wired similarly, so similar experiences are inevitable, but the level of detail, the veridical perceptions, and the transformative impact of these journeys suggests something more. If it were merely random brain activity, why would people emerge with consistent insights? Less fear of death, greater compassion, a sense of unity with existence. Random processes rarely produce such stable outcomes. It seems more likely that consciousness, when free, touches genuine aspects of reality that transcend individual neurology. It is worth noting that many who undergo profound out-of-body experiences describe a paradoxical feeling. They are more themselves outside the body than inside it. They feel lighter, clearer, more expansive, as though the body were a constraint rather than a home. This sensation raises deep questions about identity and embodiment. Are we fundamentally beings of light and awareness who temporarily inhabit physical shells? If so, then the nightly departure is not an escape, but a return, however brief, to our truest form. There is also a creative dimension. Many innovators throughout history have claimed that their insights came not from rational deduction, but from sudden flashes, dreams, or altered states. The structure of the benzene molecule, for example, was discovered in a dream. Musicians and artists speak of inspiration flowing as though from beyond themselves. If consciousness leaves the body, it may access reservoirs of knowledge and creativity unavailable to the waking mind. These nightly journeys may be one of the hidden engines of human progress, fueling leaps of imagination that shape our world. But alongside wonder, there is caution. Not all experiences outside the body are blissful. Some describe unsettling realms, chaotic landscapes, or encounters with troubling presences. Whether these are projections of inner fears or actual dimensions is debated. Yet they serve as reminders that leaving the body is not inherently safe or easy. Just as the physical world contains both beauty and danger, so too may the non-physical. Approaching these states with respect, preparation, and grounding becomes essential. This is why so many traditions surround these practices with rituals, guidance, and ethical teachings. Shamans, mystics, and spiritual teachers emphasize that the quality of one's mind and heart shapes the journey. Enter with fear or malice, and the realms may reflect it. Enter with openness and compassion, and the realms may reveal their beauty. If consciousness does leave the body, then the journey may act as a mirror, reflecting the inner state upon the canvas of greater reality. At this point, we face an interesting paradox. On one hand, consciousness seems to leave the body regularly, universally. On the other, most people live unaware of it, dismissing it as dreams or imagination. Why such a disconnect? Perhaps it is by design. The human experience may be structured so that the greater truth is always close, always accessible, but hidden enough that we must seek it with intention. This preserves the integrity of the physical experience while allowing glimpses of the infinite for those who ask deeper questions. This duality, living as though confined to the body while nightly transcending it, adds richness to existence. It means we are both finite and infinite, grounded and unbound. The body provides stability, continuity, and learning. Consciousness provides expansion, exploration, and connection. Together, they weave the tapestry of human life, each essential to the other. The nightly departure, then, is not a contradiction, but a complement, reminding us that we are more than we appear, yet also rooted in this particular form for a reason. To see this clearly is to approach life differently. If you believe you are only a body, mortality becomes terrifying, identity becomes fragile, and meaning becomes precarious. But if you sense that you are consciousness itself, capable of existing beyond the body, then mortality softens, identity expands, and meaning deepens. Life becomes less about clinging to form and more about exploring the vastness of being. Every challenge becomes a lesson. every encounter a reflection of deeper truths, and every night an opportunity to reconnect with the infinite. People who recount experiences outside their body often describe perception as instantaneous, total, and free from the usual constraints of the senses. They don't see with eyes or hear with ears, they simply know in a direct and immediate way. This points to the possibility that awareness itself carries perception innately, independent of the physical organs we usually rely on. In waking life, sensory perception is limited and filtered. Eyes capture only a tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum. Ears detect only a narrow range of frequencies. The brain assembles these inputs into a coherent picture, but what we call reality is only a sliver of the whole. If consciousness leaves the body, the filters may fall away, allowing awareness to perceive directly without mediation. This could explain why out-of-body experiences often feel more vivid, more real than waking life. It is not that they are less real, but perhaps that they are less filtered. This unmediated perception raises fascinating questions about the nature of knowledge. If awareness can perceive directly, then information may be accessed not through senses, but through resonance or connection. People in altered states often describe downloading entire bodies of knowledge instantly, without words or symbols. They return with insights they cannot fully explain, but that feel deeply true. If such perception is possible, then consciousness leaving the body may grant access to forms of knowing far beyond the intellectual reasoning of daily life. We see echoes of this idea in mystical traditions around the world. Yogic texts speak of states where knowledge arises spontaneously, without study. Shamans describe journeys where they encounter spirits who impart wisdom. Christian mystics recount visions in which entire truths are revealed in moments of illumination. Whether framed as divine revelation, spiritual vision, or expanded consciousness, the theme is the same. Beyond the body, knowledge flows differently, more directly, more wholly. Science too has glimpsed fragments of this possibility. The phenomenon of remote viewing, studied by government programs in the 20th century, produced results that defy conventional explanation. Individuals described distant locations or events with surprising accuracy, suggesting that perception might not require proximity or physical senses at all. If consciousness can perceive non-locally, then leaving the body may not be about traveling through space, but about shifting focus within an interconnected field of awareness. This leads us to the idea of consciousness as a field. Instead of being confined to the brain, awareness may be distributed like a cloud or ocean, in which individual minds are localized but not isolated. In this model, leaving the body is simply the loosening of boundaries, the merging of individual awareness with the greater field. Perception expands because it is no longer restricted to the narrow point of view of the body, but participates in a broader web of information. Another fascinating dimension is the relationship between consciousness and energy. Many traditions describe the non-physical body as composed of subtle energies, sometimes called prana, chi, or life force. When awareness leaves the physical, it moves into these subtler energy bodies, which operate by different laws. Movement is effortless, guided by intention. Communication is telepathic, mind to mind. Energy flows shape the environment as much as external forces do. If this is accurate, then leaving the body is not stepping into a void, but into an energetic ecosystem with its own structures and dynamics. This energetic perspective might also explain why emotional and mental states so strongly influence the experience. Fear, anger, or confusion can cloud perception, creating turbulent environments. Calm, love, and clarity produce luminous landscapes and uplifting encounters. Consciousness in these realms may shape reality directly, much as thoughts shape dreams. The environment reflects the inner state, blurring the line between perception and creation. This suggests that the nightly departure of consciousness is not only a journey outward, but also a journey inward, revealing the intimate link between mind and world. Consider also the phenomenon of shared experiences. There are reports of multiple people experiencing the same non-physical environment, meeting one another, and later verifying the encounter. These accounts are rare but striking, suggesting that the realms accessed when leaving the body may not be purely private constructions, but shared realities. If true, this undermines the notion that out-of-body states are only personal illusions and supports the idea that they are windows into dimensions accessible to many. The implications for human relationships are profound. If consciousness can meet outside the body, then connection is not limited to physical proximity. Loved ones separated by distance, or even by death, may still connect in these realms. Countless accounts describe meetings with departed relatives, filled with comfort and recognition. Whether symbolic or literal, these experiences bring healing and reassurance, softening the sharp edges of loss. If consciousness truly persists beyond the body, then these meetings may not be imagination, but genuine reunions. The idea of persistence beyond death brings us to the greatest implication of all. If consciousness can exist independently of the body nightly, even briefly, then death may not be annihilation, but transition. The nightly departure could be practice, a rehearsal for the final release. This view aligns with traditions that describe death not as an end, but as a shift, a passing from one dimension to another. If we leave the body every night and return, then perhaps death is simply leaving and not returning. Of course, the mystery remains. Skeptics will argue that all such experiences are brain phenomena, crafted by neural networks in altered states. They point to the lack of physical evidence, the subjective nature of the accounts. Yet subjectivity does not equal falsity. The richness, consistency, and transformative power of these experiences demand attention. Even if one clings to a purely neurological model, the question remains: why would evolution produce experiences so profound, so universal, so meaningful? Surely there is more to the story than random firings. Indeed, meaning itself may be the key. Whether or not consciousness literally travels, the experiences shape lives. They bring courage in the face of death, inspiration for creativity, and healing for wounds, both emotional and physical. They remind us that we are more than our routines, more than our struggles, more than flesh and bone. They open windows to the infinite, however fleeting. And in that opening, something changes. We live differently, love differently, hope differently. This is perhaps the greatest gift of the nightly journeys. They expand our sense of who we are and what reality might be. They whisper that we are not confined to our limitations, that there is more to existence than meets the eye. Even if we never remember them fully, their effects ripple into our waking lives, shaping us in ways we cannot measure. We become less fearful, more compassionate, more open to wonder. In short, we become more human by glimpsing what lies beyond humanity. The challenge, then, is not only to wonder whether consciousness leaves the body, but to consider what we do with the possibility. Do we dismiss it, reducing it to neural noise? Do we romanticize it, chasing visions without grounding? Or do we engage it thoughtfully, recognizing it as a mystery that invites exploration? Each path leads to different outcomes. Dismissal may bring closure, but at the cost of depth. Romanticization may inspire, but risk delusion. Thoughtful engagement balances curiosity with humility, inviting the mystery to shape us without demanding it conform to our preconceptions. Perhaps that is the truest approach, to live with the question, to honor the mystery. Consciousness may leave the body, or it may not. The evidence is tantalizing but not conclusive. And yet, even in the not knowing, there is value. The very act of asking expands us. It opens us to possibilities, stretches the boundaries of imagination, and reminds us that reality is far richer than we grasp. The question itself becomes a doorway, inviting us to step beyond certainty into wonder. In this way, the nightly journeys of consciousness, whether literal departures or symbolic processes, perform their greatest function. They remind us of mystery. They remind us that life is not solved by equations alone, that existence cannot be reduced to mechanisms and molecules. They remind us that to be alive is to dwell in questions, to walk in wonder, to explore horizons both within and beyond. And whether or not we leave our bodies, that exploration is the essence of what it means to be conscious. Modern physics has chipped away at the notion of a fixed, objective reality. Instead, we find a universe built on probabilities, entanglement, and strange non-local effects that defy common sense. If matter itself is uncertain, then perhaps consciousness is not confined by material structures at all. This opens the door to the idea that awareness may shift into other dimensions or modes of existence when the body rests. Quantum mechanics is often misused to justify mystical ideas, but its genuine mysteries are no less astonishing. For example, the observer effect shows that the act of observation influences the behavior of particles. This suggests that consciousness is not merely a passive witness, but an active participant in shaping reality. If awareness has such influence at the most fundamental level, then it may not be bound to the brain alone. The brain may be more like a receiver tuning into consciousness rather than a generator producing it. This perspective changes everything. If the brain is a receiver, then consciousness can exist independently, much like a radio signal exists whether or not a radio is turned on. In that case, leaving the body is not a breaking of physical law, but a shifting of the receiver's dial, allowing awareness to tune into a different frequency of reality. People who describe floating above their bodies may be experiencing this frequency shift directly, accessing levels of existence not normally perceived in daily life. The notion of frequency resonates with many traditions. Ancient cultures often spoke of different planes of existence vibrating at different rates. Mystical texts describe higher worlds accessible through altered states. Even modern metaphors like raising your vibration reflect this intuition that consciousness interacts with layers of reality through resonance. When we leave the body, perhaps we are not leaving space at all, but shifting vibration, aligning with a realm that coexists with our own yet remains invisible to the ordinary senses. Consider also how time behaves in these states. People report that minutes in the physical world can feel like hours, days, or even lifetimes outside the body. This suggests that time in non-physical realms is not linear in the same way. It may expand, contract, or dissolve entirely, allowing experiences that are impossible to fit into ordinary chronology. This distortion hints at a deeper truth. that time itself may be a construct of the physical body and brain, and that consciousness, when freed, experiences reality more fluidly. This fluidity of time could explain why people return with profound insights after only brief moments away. If awareness can step outside the flow of physical time, it may access a broader perspective where events are not sequential but simultaneous. Some describe perceiving past, present, and future all at once, as though standing on a mountaintop, looking over a vast landscape. If such perception is possible, then leaving the body may grant us glimpses of a reality where time is less a prison and more a canvas. The relationship between consciousness and time is not only theoretical. Studies of near-death experiences often describe a life review, where individuals see their entire lives unfold in an instant. They relive choices, emotions, and consequences with astonishing clarity. This suggests that consciousness, when freed from the body, can access information in ways beyond linear recall. The life review is not a memory, but an immersion, a direct experience of one's existence as a whole. This challenges our notion of identity as a story unfolding step by step. Perhaps we are larger than the timeline we inhabit, and leaving the body reveals that greater self. The idea of a greater self resonates across cultures. Mystical traditions speak of the higher self, the soul, the Atman, or the spirit. These terms differ in nuance but converge on the notion that our waking personality is only a fragment of a larger consciousness. When we leave the body, we may reconnect with this greater self, gaining perspective on our lives from a higher vantage point. This could explain why out-of-body journeys often bring profound clarity, why everyday worries seem trivial when viewed from beyond the body. Awareness expands, and with it, understanding deepens. Such expansion invites ethical and spiritual growth. People who experience leaving the body often report becoming more compassionate, less attached to material concerns, and more attuned to meaning. This transformation suggests that the nightly departure of consciousness, even if forgotten, may subtly shape who we are. It may whisper lessons of interconnectedness, reminding us that we are not isolated individuals, but part of a vast web of awareness. Each glimpse beyond the body reinforces this truth, whether remembered or not. Skeptics argue that such transformations are simply psychological responses to intense experiences. But the question remains, why do these experiences consistently lead to growth rather than confusion or despair? If they were mere illusions, we might expect a range of outcomes, some harmful. Yet overwhelmingly, people report healing, inspiration, and purpose. This consistency hints at something deeper, something woven into the fabric of reality. Consciousness leaving the body may not be an accident or malfunction, but a natural part of human existence, designed to teach and transform. One might wonder, if we leave our bodies so often, why do we not remember more clearly? Memory is a fragile thing, shaped by the brain's filters. Experiences outside the body may not translate well into the structures of waking thought. Just as a dream dissolves upon waking, so too may these journeys slip away. Yet their influence remains subtle but real. Perhaps memory is not the goal. Perhaps the point is not to recall the details, but to absorb the essence, to let the journey shape us without needing to grasp it fully. Another intriguing possibility is that forgetting is protective. If we remembered every departure, the boundary between waking life and non-physical realms might blur dangerously. We might struggle to function in the physical world, distracted by memories of vast landscapes and encounters beyond comprehension. Forgetting allows us to live here fully, to engage with physical existence without being overwhelmed. The veil of forgetting is not a flaw but a gift, ensuring balance between realms. Still, some do remember vividly, and their accounts provide us with glimpses into what leaving the body may entail. They speak of floating, of travelling, of encountering beings of light or landscapes of stunning beauty. Some report cities of energy, where thought itself shapes the architecture. Others describe libraries of infinite knowledge, or gardens more vivid than anything on Earth. These recurring motifs suggest that the non-physical realms may have structure and order, not random hallucination. If so, then leaving the body grants access to a real, if subtle, dimension of existence. Whether these realms are internal projections or external realities remains an open question, yet even if they are projections, they reveal truths about the nature of consciousness. The landscapes may be symbolic, reflecting inner states, but symbols have power. They guide, teach, and transform. A journey into a luminous city may reflect the blossoming of clarity within the self. An encounter with a wise figure may symbolize intuition or inner wisdom. In this way, leaving the body is not only exploration, but self-discovery. The beauty of the question lies in its openness. To say with certainty that consciousness leaves the body would be premature, but to deny it entirely would ignore the depth of human experience. The truth may lie somewhere in between, in a reality where inner and outer blend, where consciousness shapes and is shaped by the realms it touches. Perhaps the very act of asking changes the experience, expanding the horizons of what is possible. The journey, then, is both literal and metaphorical. Literal in the sense that people genuinely experience leaving their bodies, perceiving and learning beyond physical constraints. Metaphorical in that these journeys mirror our deeper search for meaning, for connection, for understanding. Whether consciousness truly departs or simply expands within, the effect is the same. We touch mystery, and the touch transforms us. As we move closer to the heart of this question, we find that the mystery is not meant to be solved, but embraced. Consciousness leaving the body is not a riddle with a final answer, but an invitation to live differently, to honor the unseen, to walk with humility in the face of the infinite. It reminds us that our existence is layered, complex, and rich beyond measure. And whether or not we ever prove it scientifically, the possibility itself is enough to awaken wonder. We have traveled far through this question, following consciousness as it moves beyond the body, peering into scientific theories, spiritual traditions, and personal accounts that suggest we are more than physical beings. What becomes clear is that consciousness, whether or not it truly departs every night, reveals itself as something vast, mysterious, and deeply connected to the fabric of reality itself. This brings us back to where the question began, your nightly journey into sleep, the time when awareness shifts, the body grows still, and something unexplainable unfolds. Every night you surrender the waking self. Your thoughts dissolve into imagery, your sense of time unravels, your awareness drifts into realms both familiar and strange. To an outside observer, you are simply lying in bed, but inside, worlds open. Whether you call it dreaming, shifting states, or the departure of consciousness, it is a profound reminder that reality is not fixed. It bends, reshapes, and reimagines itself through your awareness, showing you that what you call you cannot be confined to a body alone. When you awaken in the morning, you return changed, though you may not realize it. The mind has reorganized, emotions have settled, and insights linger in the background, influencing your day in subtle ways. You may not remember where you went or what you saw, but the effects ripple through your life. In this sense, your nightly journey is not only an escape, but a return, an opportunity to step outside of ordinary limits and then come back renewed. This is why so many traditions have honored sleep and dreams as sacred, as a time when the soul travels and returns with gifts. Perhaps consciousness does leave the body, exploring realms of pure awareness, meeting other minds, even glimpsing the vast field of existence beyond time. Or perhaps it remains within, creating symbolic worlds that reflect your inner truths. The distinction may not matter as much as it seems. Both possibilities point to the same conclusion. You are more than the sum of your physical parts. Awareness transcends the boundaries of flesh and bone. It reaches into places science has only begun to glimpse, and spirituality has celebrated for millennia. The real power of this question lies in how it changes the way you see yourself. To consider that you might leave your body is to realize you are not trapped by it. You are not defined by the limits of time, space, or circumstance. You are not merely a machine made of matter, but a conscious being capable of journeys beyond imagination. That awareness brings with it a freedom no material possession could match. The freedom to know that your essence is vast, resilient, and connected to something eternal. It is worth pausing to consider what that means for your life. If you are more than your body, then fear of death loses some of its grip. If you are more than your waking identity, then your struggles and failures are not the whole story. If you are capable of touching other realms, then your potential is greater than you have ever believed. Each night becomes not just rest, but transformation, not just an ending of one day, but a passage into mystery. This perspective also deepens the meaning of human connection. If our awareness can move beyond physical barriers, then we are never truly separate from those we love. Encounters with departed loved ones in dreams or visions may not be illusions, but genuine connections across dimensions of consciousness. Even in life, the bond between minds may be stronger than physical distance, suggesting that love and thought weave threads across realms unseen. Ultimately, the question of whether consciousness leaves the body every night may never be answered with certainty. But perhaps certainty is not the point. The mystery itself is the gift. It calls you to wonder, to imagine, to live with openness to realities beyond the ordinary. It invites you to see your nightly rest not as emptiness, but as adventure, not as unconsciousness, but as possibility. And it encourages you to carry that sense of wonder into the waking world, to live with curiosity and courage, to remember that you are part of a story far larger than yourself. So tonight, when you close your eyes and surrender to the unknown, think of it not as a small escape, but as a grand voyage. Whether your consciousness soars into other dimensions or simply expands within, you are entering a space of profound mystery. Trust it, embrace it, and know that in ways seen and unseen, it is shaping you. And when you awaken, carry with you the quiet knowing that you are more than this body, more than this moment, more than you can ever fully grasp. Hello everyone, thank you for joining me tonight on Sleep Space as we explored this extraordinary question together. I hope it has given you not only knowledge, but also a sense of wonder, a reminder that every night holds mysteries as vast as the universe itself. Sleep well, travel far, and may your journeys, wherever they take you, bring peace, clarity, and inspiration.